Eastsiders meet over benzene spill. Reactions at 11.
Morning uranium leak angers union. Details at 11.
This is an update from News 5.
Good evening, I'm Jerry Springer.
And I'm Norma Rashid. Residents surrounding that benzene leak last week at the Queen City terminals got together tonight, and even though the spill is gone, their hard feelings about the problem aren't.
And the city and the Cincinnati Reds have come to terms. No lawsuit, just some compromises.
And more lawsuits will be filed at the NLO plant in Fernald.
We'll have all the news, weather, and sports tonight at 11 on News 5.
This News 5 update is brought to you by Mike Sell's Potato Chips. And now, News 5 Tonight with Jerry Springer and Norma Rashid. Weather from Pat Berry and Steve Biziak with sports. This is News 5 Tonight.
Good evening. The message tonight from the folks who live and work in the east end of Cincinnati was loud and clear. No more benzene, period. During a packed meeting, the Columbia-Tusculum Community Council said it would no longer abide by the agreement which allowed Queen City terminals to bring the poisonous chemical into their community. That after last Thursday's leak of benzene during the very first shipment to the area. News 5's Toria Hamill says that leak is far from forgotten by those who live nearby.
It was supposed to be a night of questions, but for most it turned into a night of venting frustrations.
Residents of the Columbia-Tusculum area crowded into the VFW Hall on Eastern Avenue, waiting for an opportunity to speak to the city officials for the first time since the leak occurred last week. More than once, the conversation was heated, and the questions that emerged were ones that had been asked countless numbers of times. The answers centered around a communications breakdown.
They said the leak was discovered at 10:30. Why isn't it 1:30? They told us to leave because we was in danger. And they said the leak was obtained in 30 minutes. Why at 1:30 did they tell us to leave?
When you're up here behind in alligators, it's hard to be objective about
that. It was about 1 o'clock.
And they were busy dealing with the spill and the attendant problems to it, and notifying the police so that they could take the appropriate action and notifying the community of what was happening in there was lower on their priority list.
For the most part, tonight's gathering gave those with anger and concern a chance to vent their feelings.
Within city limits, with the population as dense as it is, I'd like to know if you'd like to live down here with benzene right next door.
Toria Hamill, News 5 Tonight.
Cincinnati City Council is also highly critical of the benzene shipments into Queen City terminals. In council chambers today, there was not only criticism of the benzene shipments themselves, but also at the city's shortcomings in handling a toxic spill.
If I had to vote right now, I'd say forget it. We don't have the knowledge, we don't have the money, and we don't have the time to fool with it anymore.
As for now, council has stopped all shipments of benzene to Queen City terminals until the health and safety of nearby residents can be better guaranteed.
Health concerns are again on the minds of NLO workers tonight after yet another incident at the uranium plant. Nearly 7 pounds of radioactive dust leaked inside the plant during the third shift early this morning. The plant was shut down and employees were evacuated. Now
Good evening, I'm Jerry Springer. The sale of Homestate is on shaky grounds. Chemical Bank says the $91 million proposed state contribution just isn't enough. We'll have a full report. Also, it seems as if everyone has a point of view on the Commissioner of Baseball's suggestion that drug testing be for all the players as well as the owners. We'll have a report on that. And Dave Robinson takes a look at Cincinnati softball and Norma Cincinnati Vice. We'll have all the news tonight at 11. Please join us. Good evening. Tonight, a question is being asked in boardrooms and ballparks across the nation. Just how bad is the cocaine problem in Major League Baseball? Well, the commissioner of that sport says an investigation into drug use in Pittsburgh is likely to reveal information so serious that it's likely to damage the game. And in response, he wants everyone in baseball to undergo mandatory drug testing. Today, reaction to that announcement ranged from applause to outrage. Ironically, the big league players themselves are now exempt from the commissioner's order. That's because of a contract between the players and the owners. As for the players' union, a spokesman today said he didn't think the testing was needed, adding the cocaine problem is no worse in baseball than any other business. And it was just that drug, cocaine, that police found in huge quantities in South Florida today. In fact, it might be the largest bust ever. 2 tons of the white powder with a street value of about $2 billion. 1,900 pounds of cocaine were taken from a speedboat ditched in Miami's Biscayne Bay today. It had been chased by the Coast Guard. 3 men fled in the boat. 1 is in custody. And in Florida City, 2,100 pounds were seized in a mobile home, stopped for a minor traffic violation. It's not known if the drug shipments were related. It has its ups and downs, and News 5's Jeff Hirsh now tells us of someone who's gone up and down 6,000 times.
What you are about to see does not make any sense. Now, it does make perfect sense to ride the racer at Kings Island once, or maybe twice. But it makes no sense to ride the racer 6,000 times. No sense, that is, unless you are 23-year-old Don Helbig of Cincinnati. Don holds the world's record for most rides on a single roller coaster. He started back in 1981. And today he established a new milestone, 6,000 rides.
From Scott's.
Oops, empty tanks and a willingness to wait. And wait they did in the latest edition of the great radio station Gasoline Wars. News 5's Jeff Hirsh visited the front lines.
The sound of a car in desperate need of gas. A whole lot of cars, desperate or otherwise, lined up all day at Mike Fair's mobile station on Galbraith Road. The reason? Cheap gas. Real cheap gas.
19 cents is a heck of a lot cheaper than it usually is.
That's right, 19 cents a gallon. The low price, part of a radio station promotion by Q102. The line was long, the wait was longer. How long you been waiting?
About 5 hours.
That's right, 5 hours. Of course, not everyone will wait that long. The guy who thought this up wouldn't.
Me personally, no. I'm probably too lazy to do it. I'd hire somebody to do it for me, I guess.
The cop directing traffic wouldn't.
No. And I have a Honda, no.
In fact, the guy who owns the gas station wouldn't.
No way. No way.
You know, when you think about it, you really lose money waiting in line like this, because you'd save about $7 in gas versus the regular price. But if you figure your time is worth the minimum wage, multiply the minimum wage times the number of hours you waited, you were in reality coming out behind. But that didn't seem to bother people. They came here anyway.
Some needed help.
I ran out of gas down there right underneath the overpass.
And what'd they do?
Push me.
Others needed more help.
I've been waiting 4 hours to get up here, and my battery died on me, and I'm almost to the door.
But everyone who did make it agreed it was worth it.
I didn't have nothing else better to do today.
How's that again?
Nothing better to do.
That's what I thought you said. In fact, I think there might be a song in all of this entitled, Take This Car and Shove It.
Come on, take your foot off that brake.
Jeff Hirsh, News 5.
Well, I hope that lady wasn't trying to get lottery tickets today, too.
No, she's had a bad day. Runs out of gas, poor battery. Well, the weather didn't have a good day either, did it?
Well, no, not really. I thought it was going to shape up and look like opening day did last year. Remember that?
Collins decided recently that he didn't like his old trench coat anymore, that he needed a new one. But the thought of just throwing away the coat bothered him. After all, it's more than a trench coat. It's a reporter's best friend.
You must remember this.
The trench coat. In the 30s and 40s, Bogey loved them. Today, they're one of the most popular items of outerwear in any men's store.
Our sales show that basically, and that's the industry norm for that matter, is that we sell about 2 to 1 of the trench coat double-breasted style as opposed to the single-breasted winter coat.
For those of us in news, the coat is much more than just a necessity. It's a uniform. It has literally replaced the hat with a press card in it as a symbol of the craft. It's come a long way from its inception in World War I, designed by a company called Burberry for British officers to wear in the trenches.
And my coat has come a long way, too, since I first bought it back in 1979. Oh, sure, some of the buttons are gone, but the journalistic memories live on.
Like the time Frank Sinatra didn't give me an interview, or the day the newsroom hinted that maybe I needed a new one. Oh, I know what they were thinking when they sent me down that ski slope. Maybe he'll tear it.
And see this spot here? It takes me back to a special day last September. I was here in the dugout with Pete as he was about to step up to bat and make the greatest hit of all time. Sweat was pouring down his face. He reached for a towel, none was around. I said, "Here, Pete, take my coat."
And the rest is history.
So now it's over. And where do old trench coats go? Why, to here, the Trench Coat Hall of Fame. Names like Murrow, Cronkite, Peter Grant, and others. And mine's over here. And as you can see, some coats are placed in more prominent positions than others.
As time goes by.
Michael Collins, News 5 Tonight.
It's remarkable.
Do you believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's breaking me up.
It's sad. A trench coat will be the perfect weekend weather.
An attendance record was set at Riverbend tonight. It broke the record that was set last night by the same artist, Detroit rock and roller Bob Seger. And as Michael Collins reports, it's what Seger doesn't do as much as what he does that's kept him on top.
You probably haven't read a whole lot about Bob Seger. His lifestyle is pretty much like his music, basic. No hanging out with Rod Stewart or Michael Jackson or Brooke Shields, and no llamas in the bedroom.
Just a home kind of guy. You know, I've always had a lady in my life and always been sort of a homebody, really.
Do they know much about you, those people who come to see you?
That's a good question. I think there's a sort of an ethical thing, set of values is a better way to put it, that runs through my lyrics and has been for like years. And maybe they identify with that, and maybe they just identify with the beat, I don't know.
It took Seger 11 years to achieve this kind of success in small clubs and high school gyms. And while struggling to the top, he was watching other artists with gimmicks and lasers and painted faces come and go.
I've seen so many people come up and down in 22 years. When Michael Jackson had a gigantic record, it was just, it happened, you know, it was great, good. The Bee Gees back in the 70s, you know, had that gigantic record, and Fleetwood Mac and everything. And they go up, they go down, and we just sort of keep going along, you know.
Michael Collins, News 5 Tonight.
Yeah, I guess he keeps going along.
Cooler temperatures today served as a reminder that old man winter's on his way. As usual, a lot of people who hadn't thought much about getting ready for winter decided to do something about it right away. News 5's Clyde Gray followed one man who's literally cleaning up by helping people prepare for winter.
Doing right now is running hardened steel type brushes over the inside surfaces of the chamber. I've just run them a moment ago through the flue liner, the vertical part of the chimney. What are you finding? Well, a pretty good bit of creosote. All this type of material can ignite inside a chimney and cause a potentially dangerous fire.
In some homes, chimney flues also act as vents for gas furnaces, and Youngberg says they too often clog up.
That means when the furnace operates, you have carbon monoxide gases coming directly into your living space rather than going into your chimney.
Youngberg says his company and other sweeps have been putting in 7-day work weeks lately. He says in his business, they call it the flu season.
Sorry, dear.
I'm here on these turns things. It was great. This guy closed his eyes in the first 2 notes. So, yeah, I was just a kid of mine. They call this title a Swiss high-speed Vortex. And Kings Island promises its new $4 million one-of-a-kind coaster is a thriller. What? More exciting than any other roller coaster ride. It feels like it would come right off the track and the corkscrew. Oh, it scared me to death. I like going upside down. Now, it's more fun for me to just watch from the sidelines. To go 12 stories in the air and then drop at 50 miles per hour is just too much for me. But not too much for Don Helbig, who set a record by riding another Kings Island coaster called the Racer 6,000 times. The Vortex has to be considered a better ride, but I would still prefer to ride the Racer because I don't think you can continually do something like that ride or finally get to your stomach. Now, you can make up your mind which coaster you like best. Kings Island's 1987 season opens tomorrow. Judy Olsbus, News 5. Well, the Park 16 season will also feature a brand new ice show in the Fest House. That's right, figure skating in the summer. Nice weather.
So far, 3 Marines have been arrested in that case, but given that, the Pentagon's not taking any chances.
Closer to home tonight, there's a publication in our area that is about to celebrate its 3rd anniversary. Michael Collins reports on the Night Beat that not only has it withstood the test of time, it's withstood the test of youth as well.
Edson Lane is a well-informed neighborhood. Some read the Post, some read the Enquirer, but all read the Edson Lane News.
The Edson Lane News is a publication that has been in existence some 3 years now, which is surprising when you consider that this is a day and age when newspapers all over the country are breaking up and going under. I mean, even Lou Grant is a high school principal now.
The paper is published in this newsroom, which also occasionally serves as a basement, by reporter Larry Weinheimer, 11, reporter Dan Marina, 13, and the founder and editor and reporter Steve Bailey, 12.
Every issue becomes better. The pictures and the stories become better.
Some of the stories are features and some are hard news, like the day a neighbor was choking.
The fire trucks went down the street, and I grabbed a notebook and a piece of paper, and I went down and I asked the fireman what happened, and then he told me.
On any given day, you'll see these kids covering the street for stories for their weekly summertime deadline. And although Steve says he wants to be a reporter when he grows up, he's obviously not quite ready for a total journalistic commitment.
Would you be willing to go to jail to protect your sources?
Nope.
But he has kept this paper going for 3 years, something most kids couldn't do. And in a day of newspaper mergers and hostile corporate takeovers, Steve Bailey isn't worried a bit.
Well, are you concerned about Rupert Murdoch?
Who's that?
And how would the Atson Lane News end this story?
A newspaper is fun, exciting, and isn't that hard to start. This is Steve Bailey, News 5 on the Night Beat.
Aw.
Good job. It isn't so tough to start a television station either. That kid's got a future.
That's true.
They have my job. Up next on News 5 tonight, a strange leader in the Masters golf tournament.
And if you're hoping to get some sun this weekend, you could be in for a surprise. We'll be right back.
This is the 4th year that teachers have been honored with a recognition breakfast.
Jerry, the students and teachers at Delshire Elementary School in the Oak Hills District are a very proud group of people, and they have every reason to be. One of the students at the school is one of 350 kids nationwide to be honored for writing abilities. News 5's Rob Roblin has a story about this very gifted second grader.
1987. A lot of us may not realize it, but this is a very important year for all of us who call ourselves Americans. Because you see, this is the 200th birthday of the U.S. Constitution. Kathy Stevens' second grade class at Delshire Elementary School, full of average students from average families. But these students may just know more about the Constitution of the United States than most of us. And proof of that is in the work done by one of them, Robin Krieg.
What the U.S. Constitution means to me and our country. I love the Constitution because it allows me to be free to speak, draw, and go anywhere.
In his class for gifted children, Robin and his classmates learned about our Constitution, and they each wrote a 250-word essay.
The best part is the Bill of Rights. Judges and juries will decide if people have broken laws. This is good because everyone gets to prove they are innocent.
Robin, along with 10 other students, will represent the state of Ohio in a national essay contest sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education and the Weekly Reader. Robin's essay was judged one of the best by judges and educators. It is quite an honor. His teacher in the gifted program is Lois Nichols.
I think of children this small understanding it and being able to say what they feel about it makes me really proud.
He is only a second grader, but his knowledge of his country and its laws is enormous. It can be amazing what we can learn from our children if we just take the time to listen.
The Constitution allows me to live without being afraid of the government.
Rob Roblin, News 5.
Of the 350 already picked nationwide, 150 out of that group will be chosen as finalists. They will travel to Washington, D.C. in June to be honored, and the essays of the 150 finalists will be printed in a book, The American Sampler, to be published by the U.S. Department of Education. Isn't that nice?
A remarkable young man.
Bright little boy.
Coming up next on News 5,
It seems like all the news this year is about strikes. The director's strike, the NBC strike, the football strike. No wonder I had this nightmare.
Quick, I need a photographer to cover the mayor. You know, a cameraman.
Michael, we don't have any.
Now, this whole thing could be a bit disenchanting. I mean, I got into this business for the glamour. This outfit alone cost $100. Now, everything a photographer wears is portable, even the light. It's like a miner's life. And like a miner, I went mining for news. The story, Mayor Luken's reaction to Columbus Day, which, by the way, is Monday. As I began to shoot, I began to understand why you never saw Frank Capra in any of his own flicks.
If Columbus has a day, why doesn't Cincinnati have a day?
Michael, I don't think you understand. Christopher Columbus was the guy that discovered America. He's not really anything to do with the city, you know?
So far, so good. My next problem, then, is getting the mayor to shoot me asking him a question.
So then, what do you think of Christopher Columbus? Wait a minute, one more thing. Let me nod approvingly for a minute, okay?
As he answered the question, I could feel my self-confidence growing, so I went in for the zoom.
I've always enjoyed the Nina, the Pinto, and the Santa Maria.
And finally, the closing stand-up.
At the mayor's office with the mayor, this is Michael Collins, News 5 on the Night Beat.
I suppose I can assume this won't be on the network.
Well, I don't.
I think that's a good assumption. Oh, our apologies to the mayor.
Yeah, we should apologize to us for that. Still ahead on News 5 tonight, the cards and...
This is News 5 Tonight with Jerry Springer, Norma Rashid, Pat Berry's weather, and Ken Brew with sports. Now, Cincinnati's News 5 Tonight.
Good evening. Cincinnati has lost one of its brightest stars tonight.
Ruth Lyons died late this afternoon at the age of 81. A pioneer in local TV, Ruth's 50/50 Club became as much a part of the day as the morning paper. You just couldn't get along without it. Tonight, Ruth is being remembered for her numerous broadcasting achievements and for her special love of children.
Do you have a flag, American flag? Do you have an American... Oh, dear, this is the... See what I'm... Your daddy does, but you don't? Well, you're going to have one right now. Peter, girls, give each one the new flag with the 50 stars.
That was Ruth Lyons at her very best, making us laugh, making us proud, making us feel right at home. As Cincinnati's First Lady of Broadcasting, she spent 20 years on radio and nurtured local television through its infancy. Small wonder why Ruth became known as mother to her legion of fans.
As time of fun begins, so throw away your every dog and care.
Ruth started the 50/50 Club here on Channel 5 in 1949, and it became one of the great success stories of television. Who else besides Ruth and her sidekick Willie Thal wrote jingles for their sponsors while on the air?
You'll agree.
Who will agree? Unless you try them.
Well, whoever you're singing it to.
Crisp and salty, you'll agree. Sure good tempty pretzels. Sure good tempty pretzels.
Bound to suit you to a T.
Come on, everybody sing it now. A
That kind of informal atmosphere made Ruth tremendously popular and attracted the biggest names in show business to her lunchtime program.
Let us entertain you. Let me make you smile.
The smiles came easy for performers and viewers alike, and this remarkable lady made it her business to spread those smiles around. In 1939, after noticing that hospitalized children in Cincinnati did not have very many toys, Ruth started the Children's Christmas Fund. $12 million later, it is still going strong, serving 120 hospitals in 3 states.
Our numbers this year will be the highest we have ever recorded, and this has now permitted us to add the Ruth Lyons Children's Cancer Program.
That new research program began this past Friday at the University of Cincinnati, some 22 years after cancer robbed Ruth of her only child, Candy. Her daughter's untimely death led to Ruth's retirement in 1967. Walter Bartlett read her farewell letter to tearful fans.
And I hope that you will never forget, as it says in the 2nd book of Timothy, I have fought a good fight, I have run my course, I have kept the faith.
Composer, talk show hostess, humanitarian, mother, lunchtime friend. Ruth Lyons had a very easy and genuine way about her.
And I think an evening spent with you would be just about as delightful as anything I can think of, frankly.
Except
I mean, when you, no, I mean on the stage. I don't mean anything personal by that, Bob. I mean,
All I know is what I hear.
Sometimes I wish I'd keep my mouth shut, you know, but this'll never happen. This'll never happen.
You better not. You got an hour and a half here.
She spent the final years of her life in declining health, but she leaves a legacy of love and caring that is reflected each day in the faces of these children. Children who never knew her, but who are still touched by her.
At this point, funeral arrangements for Ruth Lyons haven't been finalized.
Tonight, many of us are remembering Ruth in our own way, maybe watching her on the 50-50 Club or just growing up with the knowledge of her good works and the children's fund. Well, tonight, Michael Collins talked to the people she worked with and people who remember how she made them laugh.
The 50-50 Club, starring Ruth Lyons.
It's fun to get together, fun to get together, fun to get together every day at 12 o'clock.
She hadn't been in front of a television camera for 21 years, yet the feelings for her are as great as ever. As far as television, everything Ruth Lyons did was a first.
I started in '49, and that was the beginning, you see, the beginning of color, all the excitement. They didn't have all of the rules that you can't do this, you can't do that.
Marion Spellman last saw Ruth 4 months ago.
I guess she was reflecting back on all of her years on television, and she started to cry. And both Ruby and I felt so sorry about that, so I was trying to think of something to stop the crying, because I didn't want her to feel sad, you know. And her hair looked really nice, and I patted her hair, and I said, "Oh, Ruth, your hair looks so lovely." I said, "As a matter of fact, you look pretty sexy." And she laughed. And we were so thrilled about that, that she responded to that.
Even if you never met Ruth Lyons, if you watched her, you knew her personally. Ironically, tonight at the Drawbridge Inn, there was a reunion of the 50-50 Club, and Ruth's personal friends were everywhere.
You really felt like she cared about people. Well, you just felt like you had to watch her all the time.
I really am proud of her, and I'm proud to be from Cincinnati.
The place at 9th and Elm in downtown Cincinnati remains today the house that Ruth built.
Some of those who knew her best were here tonight, including her hand-picked successor.
When one of our children was born, he was born with congenital glaucoma. And it was touch and go as to whether or not he would see. And it was shortly after I had come to work for her on her television program. And she called me into her office and she said, "Somewhere in the world is a surgeon who could cure that boy. And I know you're a young kid. I can afford it if you can't." Find a friend like that today. Part of Cincinnati died today. A big part of it.
She was an absolutely remarkable woman, touched a lot of people's lives.
20 years later, it's as if she was still on the air. Please join us for a fond look back at Ruth Lyons' tremendous career. Ruth Lyons' Portrait of a Legend will air from 7:30 to 8 o'clock Wednesday night right here on Channel 5. Ruth, of course, we will miss you. Tonight we remember a very special person, a person who continues to touch the lives of almost everyone who lives in our area.
You know, it's been almost 20 years since she retired from her daily show, yet her overwhelming personality was and is an inspiration to us.
She was a pioneer broadcaster, a television talk show host before the term was even coined.
She was a network star, both nationally and on our own regional network here in the Midwest.
We're speaking, of course, of Ruth Lyons. Ruth passed away Monday afternoon, but she left us all an important legacy.
The Ruth Lyons Children's Christmas Fund has eased the fears and brought happiness to countless youngsters for 50 years.
It's this legacy that will keep Ruth alive in our hearts for years to come. Tonight, in tribute to Ruth, we repeat a program we first aired in 1986. As a time to remember, this is Ruth Lyons, Portrait of a Legend.
With a personal commentary on the life and times of Ruth Lyons, here's News 5's managing editor, Jerry Springer.
The child in all of us cries a bit tonight because a woman who never forgot a child and helped the rest of us remember has just passed without paying to a final reward. And she hasn't earned one, no one has. I never met her, but I knew her. I never saw her, but she was everywhere. She was everywhere I saw a child who was down and out.
And if not in pain, certainly bewilderment. Why am I in this hospital? Will I be okay? When will I get out? And she wasn't a doctor or a scientist, but for tens of thousands of kids for a half-century now, she was the best of medicine. A toy, a smile. Hey, hang in there, kids. Somebody loves you. Things will work out. Ruth Lyons and a Children's Christmas Fund has become perhaps our community's most lasting and visible testament to the notion that we think about more than ourselves, that we care about others, particularly God's greatest gift, the children. We well know now what she's meant to the kids, but maybe her greatest gift was what she taught us grown-ups, from the homespun simplicity of a noontime television set, that life is best and most meaningful when we take care of each other. Let's be clear here, Ruth was a television personality. And today, in an age where so much of what we see on the tube is graphic passion, her magic, certainly more lasting, was compassion. She's been off the air now for some 20 years, and yet her works and her commitment have kept her a household name. In her final years in failing health, she couldn't take in much television. She probably couldn't get the full measure of how much she still matters to us. Well, tonight, in God's hands, maybe she can see us, and maybe now she truly knows. Thanks, Ruth, for making us all better.
Well, perhaps it isn't quite all that serious. After all, back in Cincy, it's in the 30s. 80 degrees here.
In early 1989, we let Jerry go to the Super Bowl. We don't know if he ever saw the game.
Who's going to win? Cincinnati.
Now let's go back to Jerry in Miami for a look at what Cincinnati fans did there to get ready for the big game. Jerry?
Sorry, as you can imagine, Bengal fans couldn't wait to get into this game. After all, it's the cap to what all of us fans have been hoping for all season long, a trip to the Super Bowl. P5's Jeff Hirsh found himself in the middle of Bengal country at Joe Robbie Stadium, and he shows us what it was like there on game day. The Bengal spirit was never in better and louder voice. Bengal fans were cooking, blowing their horns. They were putting on their game faces and getting with the program.
Programs! Anyone want a program?
Winning this game, fans thought would be a breeze, a warm Florida breeze, and of course it was a jungle down here. What prompted you to wear this in public?
Because they're Bengal Tigers, and we are here rooting for the Bengals.
Now, what about you now? What's your excuse?
She made me!
Then through the turnstiles and into Super Bowl 23. You were in Pontiac. How does that compare to this?
There's no comparison. It was mighty cold up there. It's just one big party down here.
These seats were Bengal country, but one 49er fan somehow managed to get a ticket here.
John Stefano, Pittsburgh, California, but right now I feel like Bob Euchre. I got a cheap seat. I'm amongst all my pals here. Yeah, right.
But Bengal fans gave him a chilly reception. Gold Star was for sale in the stadium. But it didn't take long for Bengal fans' joy and excitement to turn to serious concern when early in the first quarter, Bengals defensive star Tim Crumry was injured and taken off the field. The second half was a roller coaster for fans, emotions rising and falling as it appeared the Bengals would finally pull it out. But it was not to be.
How can you complain? I got the second best record in football. The 49ers are the only team that's done better than they have, so how can you complain about that?
Hey, they gave us our best shot. The Bengals did their best. It was a good game.
The Niners. Who did it? Don't be mad.
Tonight, they missed Stanley Wilson, they missed Tim Crumry, and they missed the championship by 34 seconds. But the fans say they will be back.
So this is a really tough one. We thought for sure the jungle would come down here and really eat them up, but it's hard to, I hate to say there's always next year, because this is the year we wanted it, but I guess that's what we have to say.
At the Super Bowl, Jeff Hirsh, News 5 tonight. Thanks, Jeff. I hope you're getting a flavor of what it was like there. I was there watching the whole game. We were up in the what would in Riverfront Stadium be the Red Seat. You can hardly talk because you spent the whole game screaming. And I got to tell you, it was like being in a Cincinnati community. I mean, the camaraderie among the fans, particularly when Jeff mentioned, like in the third and fourth quarter, when it was a roller coaster, all of a sudden we were winning when Stanford Jennings scored that touchdown. It was like unbelievable. We were really going to be Super Bowl champs. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And I hope everybody gets to share something like that sometime in their lifetime. Let's go back to you now, Clyde.
All right, Jerry, thanks. By the way, I'm touched by the fact that people seem to be accepting all of this fairly easily.
Yeah, very much so. You know, when you go through the last 34 seconds, nobody did anything to be ashamed of at that game. It was a great, great effort by people that gave it everything they had. And, you know, if the game was 34 seconds shorter, we would be world champions.
I'm glad to hear that. No matter what the outcome, I think it was definitely an experience.
Yes, it was. Well, coming next on News 5 tonight, what do fans think of Stanley Wilson's suspension?
And we'll show you what it's like.
Well, another book that's just hit the stores is an autobiography by Nancy Reagan. In it, the former First Lady answers some of her critics. And tonight, Michael Collins' World reviews the book with some local critics.
Here it is. It's called My Turn. It's an obvious reference to books by others. Now, there's some startling stuff here, but it's no catcher in the rye. About the president, he's a romantic, and the term ITWWW, well, it's not a union that went for Mondale.
Often he writes at the bottom, ITWWW, which stands for...
In the whole wide world, as in, I love you more than anything in the whole wide world.
Sounds like a romance novel, huh?
Uh-huh.
On meeting the First Lady of Russia...
From the moment we met, she talked
and talk and talk.
My fundamental impression of Riza, that's Gorbachev, isn't it, was that she never stopped talking.
And on daughter Patty, Nancy says...
I was a nervous mother, and Patty was a difficult baby from the start.
She demanded constant attention, and as I look back on it, I think we gave it to her too often.
There were also problems with eating. Sometimes after she had been fed,
she would lean over her high chair and throw up. That was lots of fun, as you can imagine.
Do you think this book should be required reading in school?
No. Well, kids, hold on with it. Ain't nothing wrong with this book. If that's life. If you don't throw up, you're not human.
Would you guys see the movie?
I'd check it out, you know.
I'd try it.
Are you gonna? Would you want to read this book?
If a picture is in, I read. I like see half. But if no picture, I don't read.
Oh, okay. So basically, this book is a combination of politics, movie stars, Ouija boards, and colic. Let's just call it a romance novel. But with all the people Nancy talked about in this book, the obvious question is, whose turn is next? Michael Collins, News 5, on the Night Beat.
Not our turn.
Not our turn.
Yeah, you should read it.
It's interesting reading.
It is. Yeah, don't believe the people that just read that. I mean,
well,
they
he just read them.
lines,
Yeah, and you take it out of context and.
Right. Otherwise, people think we're picking on.
Right, we're not.
We're not. We're not. It's a
Coming
very good book, and everybody should read it.
You done?
Yeah.
Coming up next on News 5.
One of the reasons we need bigger prisons. All those people.
Oh, return those books.
I don't know. Still ahead on News 5 tonight, one of the defendants in the Charlie Keating bank collapse is now in the clear.
And WLW radio host Don Webb is signing off. Michael Collins will give us a look back at his illustrious career in Cincinnati broadcasting. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Keating is now off the hook in a $1 billion lawsuit stemming from the failure of Keating's Lincoln Savings and Loan. The lawsuit names William Keating, chairman of the Cincinnati Enquirer, and several other Keating family members. But today, William Keating's name was dropped from the suit. No specific reason was given. Well, these folks who huddled outside the courthouse earlier today are no doubt thumbing through their long-awaited wedding pictures tonight. You see, they all paid photographer J.T. Harvey to take pictures at their weddings several months ago, but he declared bankruptcy and they never got their precious memories. Today, Harvey himself carried the pics into bankruptcy court and they were finally handed over to some very anxious couples. Harvey's attorney is contacting all his former clients, so if you're waiting for pictures, you should be getting a call.
Well, a couple of broadcast institutions came to an end today. Jane Pauley retired from the Today Show. And locally, Don Webb, the Dean of Cincinnati Broadcasters, retired from WLW Radio. Tonight, Michael Collins' World looks back at the careers of both.
It is her final morning in a run that has lasted 13 years.
They were saying goodbye to Jane Pauley in New York today.
Bye, Dono.
And they were saying goodbye to Don Webb today here in Cincinnati. Paulie's first Today Show broadcast looked like this.
A year and a half ago, Jane Pauley was a second-string newsreader in Indianapolis. That's a fact.
Webb's first radio cast on WLW and WSAI in 1943 sounded like this.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from the delightfully appointed restaurant Continental in the Hotel Netherland Plaza in the very heart of downtown Cincinnati. NBC and the nation stations presents the music of Bert Favre, his piano and his orchestra. Good evening, everybody. Don Webb.
Webb did television, too, at WKRC. But radio was his real love, and his name became synonymous with morning radio news during the years when Stan Matlock was the #1 morning disc jockey.
U.S. Senator Wendell Ford of Kentucky says this afternoon he will stay in Washington.
In 46 years in Cincinnati radio, Webb has seen a lot of changes.
I started with acetate disc, up to a wire recorder, up to tape recording, and to tape cartridges now. And the whole technology has changed, but basically, if you're a newsman, you're a newsman.
Webb says he's not totally retiring. There's still plenty of freelance work out there. But you'll notice, as we saw in this morning's Today Show, over the years, Jane Pauley's haircuts may have changed somewhat. But in Don Webb's case, the color may have changed, the haircut hasn't changed a bit. And as far as broadcasting's concerned,
it's been an awful lot of fun.
Michael Collins, News 5 on the Night Beat.
For all of us lucky enough to know Don Webb, what a wonderful man, and what a
Radio will miss
great,
him.
yeah, what a great example for all of us.
I think so. Morning TV will also miss Jane Pauley, I think of that, don't you?
Yeah, she's part of America.
Okay, Channel 5, take it easy.
Paul McCartney rocks the heck out of Riverfront Coliseum, and he stops to talk exclusively with News 5. McCartney Magic tonight at Riverfront Coliseum. The former Beatle has just wrapped up an explosive 2.5-hour concert.
Before it all got started, McCartney talked exclusively to News 5's John London.
John is live now near the Coliseum to tell us they even talked about a Beatles reunion. John, what an interview.
Yeah, we did. We touched on that subject. We caught up with him backstage about 90 minutes before tonight's show, a show which is just letting out. The traffic is heading out now. This was the hottest ticket in town tonight at Riverfront Coliseum, and I think you can probably well understand why. McCartney singing songs of yesterday, but as he explains, those songs have a mighty fresh sound to him.
A lot of them we never toured with. A lot of them we just recorded, and by the time we were ready to kind of tour with them, we'd broken up as a touring band, and we're just recording. So things like Hey Jude and Sgt. Pepper and Fool on the Hill are like brand new songs to me. It's very nice.
That is McCartney backstage, and this is McCartney on stage. Opening with Figure of 8 from his new Flowers in the Dirt album, then giving his legion of fans some musical nostalgia from his days with the Beatles. That is what brings people in their 40s to a rock concert in the 90s.
It's the music. It's the music. It's remembering buying the White Album when I was 15 years old. It's that kind of thing.
It is the kind of thing Cincinnatians remember from the last time McCartney was here, selling out Cincinnati Gardens with a group that revolutionized music. McCartney telling us tonight his touring in the mid-60s is all a blur. The guys in his new band seem to like the old songs as much as the fans from those days.
You know, I used to play some of them, so it's kind of fun to play them again, you know, but to be playing them with Paul. Only now he's doing the parts I used to do.
As for the possibility of a musical reunion with the remaining Beatles...
No, I mean, the thing is, you know, I'm sure I'll get back together with George and Ringo and play some music, but everyone then says, oh, it's a Beatles reunion, and obviously without John there could never be that kind of thing. But I'm sure we'll get back together and play some music some point.
So there you have it from Paul McCartney. When we were interviewing him tonight, he was holding a cup of English tea for his throat, for his voice. He's been having voice problems, as you know. They even had to postpone tomorrow night's Lexington concert until April because of voice problems. Members of the band telling me tonight that they've spaced things out a little bit more now to make it less of a grind, less of a strain. So that's it. The show's out. Everybody had a good time. Reporting live from the Coliseum, I'm John London, News 5.
John, this was the most exciting assignment you've ever had. Wasn't it?
Maybe so.
Definitely. You know, John caught up with Paul McCartney. He was so impressed that Paul McCartney was just so willing to talk to him, and seems to be a great guy.
Certainly want to thank him for that Channel 5 plug.
Yeah, right.
We'll be playing that a couple of times.
Sure.
We all know what impact Paul McCartney has had on shaping the music in our world. Now he's having an impact on saving the environment in the world. McCartney takes time out during his concerts to address issues like pollution, the ozone, and global warming. He's doing it all on behalf of an international group called Friends of the Earth. The head of that group tells News 5's Curtis Fuller McCartney is the biggest promotion for his organization.
And one of the things he does, he talks about us in his program, and then he sings Let It Be, which is his way of saying we've got to let the earth live. We can't keep interfering with the natural cycles of life. I think that's really his message.
Clark tells us membership in his group has gone way up since McCartney got on the bandwagon. And ironically, Clark says he first saw the Beatles right here in Cincinnati back in 1964.
In other news now, the Coleraine McCartney last tour to
past their importance, but we persist because this is personal. Rock and roll's greatest performer will wear no crown, of course, but there's no championship to be fought over by contemporaries, no relevant statistics to be measured in terms of comparisons with past greats. Indeed, the title of rock's greatest is held only in our individual minds, and yet we argue intensely because it's our own history we're talking about. You see, whomever you think's the greatest, the chances are it's someone whose prime coincides with our youth. I suspect it's because our teens and young adult years are clearly when pop music is most significant to us. And maybe that's because that's when we're falling in love or trying to or dealing most vigorously with relationships. And the radio, or today MTV and CDs and tapes, become the background music to life. Indeed, for most Americans, their favorite performer probably is someone who was big in their senior year in high school. And yes, there must be exceptions, because I'm not willing to say Bobby Vinton singing Roses Are Red was the best ever. But generally, it's no accident that those who think Sinatra's the king are kind of older, and those who swear that Elvis still lives probably were teens in the 50s. And if it's Springsteen or Michael Jackson that gets the nod, we're looking at the class of the late 70s or early 80s. But let me settle the uncertainty with the same lack of objectivity I normally reserve for these commentaries by suggesting that the man who graced the stage at the Coliseum last night was part of the creative genius that made up the greatest musical group of the century, the greatest rock group of all time, the Beatles. Their music changed the industry, changed rock and roll, indeed changed Western culture in terms of style, attitudes, and the politics of youth. And 100 years from now, their music will still be played even by symphony orchestras who are already playing it. There have been better musicians, better singers, better writers. But nobody could do it all with such impact while leaving a mark of such longevity. There'll be no reunion tours, of course. A crazed assassin saw to that. But those of us old enough to remember can never forget that where music has always been the language of the generation, the Beatles were the one group that created and shaped a generation, which is why no concert ever sold out faster, and why when Paul McCartney sang yesterday, we knew it was forever. A little later, a look at the Paul McCartney tour that will soon rock Cincinnati.
Beatles, Paul McCartney and his boys are once again a band on the run. Tonight, McCartney kicked off the second leg of his U.S. tour with a rock and roll extravaganza in Detroit. Here is what it sounded like. Yes, the former member of the Fab Four is bringing his show to Cincinnati. He'll be at Riverfront Coliseum on Monday, February 12th. If you want tickets, you better know somebody in the band, or you better know a good ticket scalper, because for this superstar, every seat in the place is sold out. Not too many seats. What, 14, 16,000 tickets?
Yeah, and they set a record like in the first 19 minutes or so, the whole thing was sold out. Well, there are all kinds of young superstars making names for them.
Last night's sellout crowd at Riverfront Coliseum are probably talking nonstop about Paul McCartney today. The former Beatle brought his world tour to Cincinnati, and judging from the reaction of his many fans, it was a night to remember. News 5's John Lennon got a chance to interview McCartney before the show, and he spent some time backstage as well. Quite a thrill.
We got to talk to band members, and then McCartney came by, walking by after a sound check on stage, and we got in a couple of questions about his voice, his music, a possible reunion with George Harrison and Ringo Starr. Here's part of what he had to say about an hour or so before the big show.
I'm sure I'll get back together with George and Ringo and play some music, but everyone then says, oh, it's a Beatles reunion, and obviously without John there could never be that kind of thing. But I'm sure we'll get back together and play some music at some point.
It's been a hard day's night.
Anyone who remembers the excitement McCartney and the Beatles created in the 1960s will be happy to hear that. It would be the kind of thing that gives a sense of time and history and moment. At this moment, McCartney and his specially formed World Tour band are going hell for leather, as they put it, pushing Paul's new material like last night's opener, Figure of Eight. But much of the show features many of the songs that makes McCartney special.
A lot of them we never toured with. A lot of them we just recorded, and by the time we were ready to kind of tour with them, we'd broken up as a touring band, and we're just recording. So things like Hey Jude and Sgt. Pepper and Fool on the Hill are like brand new songs to me. It's very nice.
McCartney's in Indianapolis tonight. Originally, he was supposed to perform in Lexington a couple nights ago, but that concert was postponed to give the band more time to rest their voices, something they all said was needed. In fact, when we talked with McCartney last night, he was holding a cup of tea, nursing his throat.
Looking at the interview that you had with him, I was so amazed that he seemed so accessible and so easygoing.
He was certainly nice enough to take a moment and stop by and talk to us as he was moving backstage, something he clearly did not have to do.
A very nice guy and a good interview.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, John.
Earlier today, I got John London's autograph just talking to Paul. You're my hero, John. That's great. Up next, one of the largest investment firms in the country is bank.
Exclusive 24-hour news channel. This is a News 5 halftime report.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to News 5's halftime update. Well, the Reds just left for tomorrow's playoff game against the Pirates. We have a crew in Pittsburgh, and Jerry Springer takes a look at how the two cities compare in the showdown on the river.
Reds fans who make the trip to Pittsburgh for the playoffs will be struck by how similar the two towns are. Three Rivers Stadium, much like our own stadium, sits along the waterfront, towering over the riverboats that dot the water. It reminds me of the area around Sawyer Point Park. You look up and you see the beauty of the hills, similar to Price Hill and Mount Adams, and the warm, cozy feeling they provide.
And so all these things we have alike, the stadium and the river and the bridges and the riverboats and the rolling hills and the fountain and our newspapers, except their newspaper is wrong.
Of course, they don't know it yet. Pirate fans swear they're #1.
There's no doubt about it. The Pirates are going to win. I'm surprised they didn't sweep, but they'll take it in Pittsburgh.
I'm a Bucs fan this year. That's because they're going all the way. I have tickets for the playoff games and the World Series when we get there.
So you can see, like us, they're confident, they've got spirit, they've got fan support. But that's where the similarity ends, because by the end of this week, only one city will go to the World Series. I'm Jerry Springer, offering condolences to Pittsburgh.
And News 5 will bring you live coverage all week long from Pittsburgh, starting...
Well, now for a change of pace. In tonight's special assignment report, we're going to visit a lone but powerful voice crying in the night. Some might call him an after-midnight caller. As we learn in Michael Collins' world, his real name is Dale Summers, but most folks know him by his handle, the Trucking Bozo.
700 WLW, good morning. I'm the Bozo. It's about 15 away from 2 Eastern Time, and we truck on through the early morning hours from Burns Brothers. Dave Dudley in 6 days on the road.
Well, I pulled out of Pittsburgh, rolling down that eastern seaboard.
They say he's the most listened to disc jockey in the country. They say he has as many as 9 million listeners from 38 states and 9 provinces. And every night from midnight to 5 Eastern Time, or 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Pacific Time, the Truckin' Bozo holds court.
Hey.
What?
Is that guy for the TV station still there?
Yeah, he's around here somewhere.
Tell him to take my picture. I've never been on TV before.
Wait a minute, Freddie.
My rig's a little old, but that don't mean she's slow.
Now, it seems a trucker, no matter where he comes from, Cincinnati, Memphis, Salt Lake, or Fresno, will only listen to country music. Bozo gives him more.
Hello, white trash.
All right.
How you doing this morning?
Oh, I ain't feeling too good.
Oh, cold or flu or what?
No, I think I got gas and PMS at the same time here.
I've got some of the funniest comedians in the country working on my show for free. And there's guys in Hollywood paying big bucks to get people like that to do funny lines for them on TV, and I get them for free.
I'm trying to coordinate things.
Try to what?
Coordinate them.
Yeah.
You know, people can coordinate their colors to make a room all pretty, you know.
It all started back in 1960 at a little Cincinnati FM station, WAEF, and since then...
I counted it up a few weeks ago. I've worked at 48 radio stations.
But I did it because I wanted to. I had fun. I enjoyed it.
I want to dedicate that song to my husband, I Love You All Over Again.
Okay.
His name is Steve, and he's a truck driver.
But after some 30 years, he's found his audience, and the hours don't bother him a bit.
For most guys, this is the graveyard shift, and they're like buried, but you don't see it like that at all, do you?
Why would I want any other shift? I can be heard all over the country. I've got friends that I've met in places that I never even heard of.
Friends on the move, and the Truckin' Bozo has a lot of them.
Just remember, if it weren't for these trucks, everything you've got in your home and use in everyday life traveled on a truck at some point along the way, and that's it. And the people of America need to know that. Am I right?
You're right! 6 days on the road, and we're gonna make it home.
Michael Collins, News Channel 5, on the Night Beat.
You know, the last thing you said is the most relevant if you listen to his show. He's not just a comedian and doing a lot of jokes and stuff. He is a real lobbyist. He is a lobbyist for the trucking people.
Yeah.
When they went on strike, he kind of organized them around the country. He's a hero.
He's been organizing throughout many states and doing a lot of work, and kind of fun to listen to, too. I have to admit.
I like that name, the Trucking Bozo.
I've listened to him every now and then, you know.
That could be the commentating Bozo. Huh?
I would say something about maybe you already are, but then we'd get ourselves in big trouble, wouldn't we? I wouldn't say that.
Where's Charlie? Well, the top vote getter in the last 3 council elections, Charlie Luken, is in Congress now, so the race for mayor has become a real horse race.
Any booth? Is it all the same? Okay.
Mayor David Mann voting this morning. Mann became mayor after Luken went to Congress. Mann's top rival is council's senior member, Guy Guckenberger, who actually beat Mann 2 years ago. Guckenberger came in second, Mann third.
So cold. I don't think I'm going to go sign this.
Mann's support is in the traditional Democratic areas, such as black neighborhoods. Guckenberger does best on the far west and far east sides, Republican strongholds. The battle is in mixed areas like Carthage, Oakley, and East Walnut Hills. Whomever his top vote getter becomes mayor, we won't know till midnight.
This is the longest day of one's life. I'd love to be mayor if that's in the cards, so to speak.
But whether it's Mann or Guckenberger on top this time, for both of them, it could be the last time.
There you go.
Thank you. That's because voters are deciding whether to limit council members to 4 consecutive terms, 8 years total, and it would be retroactive. If that passes, Mann, Guckenberger, Merlicina, and Strauss would all be forced out in 1993. Some voters think term limitation would rob council of needed experience and should be defeated.
I voted no, because if you do have someone that is good in there and their term is limited, then they're out.
But other voters say term limitation would bring fresh blood to City Hall.
I think it's a good idea. I think we have a lot of incumbents who kind of get set in their ways. I think after a period of time, everybody deserves a change. Look at some new faces, some fresh ideas.
Term limitation is not the only potential change. A return to proportional representation is also on the ballot. Supporters say PR, a system of weighted voting, would increase minority representation. Opponents say the system, which was voted out in 1957, is complicated and confusing.
I'm against it 100%.
Why?
I thought it was a bad plan years ago, and I still think it is.
But don't count PR out automatically. 3 years ago, it came pretty close on a shoestring campaign, and this year the campaign is better organized.
But this year, the race for the top 9 is taking on a new emphasis on race itself. News Channel 5's Jeff Hirsh reports there's a chance a city which is 38% black could end up with an all-white council.
Precinct 17D in Over the Rhine. If you're looking for reasons why African-American candidates find it so hard to win in Cincinnati, you need look no further than here. You see, black voters register in the same proportions as whites, but they vote a lot less, especially in poor areas. 2 years ago, 595 voters registered in this precinct, but only 89 showed up. That's 15%. The hope is for more this year, but there's no guarantee.
We usually be up past 100, but it's not what it should be for this place. We should always have over 200, but we don't.
Why not?
I don't know.
That's bad news for council's incumbent black council members Dwight Tillery and Tyrone Yates, and for non-incumbent black candidates too. But even if black turnout was better, white votes are still needed voted for African-American candidates to win, and historically, votes like that have been hard to come by.
Please consider Councilman Yates, ladies.
White voters, particularly in the conservative West Side, rarely support blacks. There are exceptions like Ken Blackwell, but it's unusual. And the combination of historic voting patterns plus African-American council members who are considered vulnerable could lead to an all-white council. That has many voters worried.
Well, it would be a terrible signal to me if that happened. It would say that Cincinnati is like Natchez, Mississippi, the most racist, prejudiced place in southern Ohio. And it would say that we would have to move to the federal courts and get a district city council election.
Good evening. Election Day 1991 looks like a good day for the Cincinnati public schools despite dire predictions. The levy has won.
Also in Cincinnati, some major surprises on city council. It looks like council will not consist of only white males. We have a new mayor, a black, Dwight Tillery, the first black mayor since Ken Blackwell.
I had the wonderful opportunity for 10 years to serve in city council. I've had another 10 years reporting in it. I got to tell you, Mr. Mayor, please get used to that. There is no surprise which equals this. You know, this is Truman beating Dewey. Did you ever think of this, Dwight?
No, not at all. I'm quite surprised, obviously very pleasantly surprised. Sure. But nonetheless quite surprised. And I'm happy and I'm very grateful to all the people of the city of Cincinnati who came out and supported me.
Obviously they have a lot of confidence. I think when we take a look at the votes, and this is a guess, several things happened tonight, and the most significant was initially that the school levy passed overwhelmingly. You have a lot of support among people apparently that support that school levy. They came out, they voted for you, they voted for Roxanne Quails, they voted for Tyrone Yates. There is a solid city vote there, and you were a benefactor of that, and deservedly so.
You're probably true. I've not had a chance to really look at all this. I've been sort of passed from one reporter to the other, and I haven't had a chance to really sort of collect my thoughts. But nonetheless, perhaps you're correct. But nonetheless, I'm very happy about it. Very grateful to be the beneficiary of those forces out there.
Give us something from your heart for a moment, okay? You have a chance now to speak to a city that for years has had a very conservative reputation. For years, to be blunt, has not had the best reputation necessarily in terms of racial relations. The people of this community stood up today and said something very strong. They said, more than anybody else running, we want Dwight Tillery to be our leader. What does that say? What do you want to say to the people out there?
Well, I'm deeply touched to have that kind of response, Jerry. I went to all parts of this city. I left no stone unturned. I went to Sailor Park. I went to Price Hill and East End and the West End and Bond Hill. And I tried to carry a message that people wanted to hear. And so what I tried to do is to bring those forces together and support my candidacy. We got a lot of good responses from people throughout the city.
Congratulations. We're all looking to you for great leadership.
Well, thank you.
You know,
thank you.
You're a good man. Good for you.
Well, we're going to work very hard at it.
Lead us well, Dwight.
Thank you. I'll do the very best that I can, Jerry.
I know you will. Dwight. Norma, sorry.
Well, we've been here a lot of election years, and it seems every election years we sit here at the end of an election night. We're surprised by something just about every year.
And this was the greatest surprise of all. I think when we take a look finally at the results, what we're going to find is that what the driving force in all of this was the school levy, and it started with the Binger Commission report. When the Binger Commission said there are reforms that had to be made, when the school board followed and endorsed those supports, when you had Michael Brandt as the superintendent taking the lead and said we're going to have discipline in our schools and we're going to reform the system, people bought into it, and we had a successful school levy. Well over, over 50% of Cincinnati public schools are the inner city, minority, black. Those people came out and voted in huge numbers, I think we will find. And the support for the school levy brought out voters that would support Dwight Tillery, that would support liberals, that would support people who are willing to spend money on the inner city. And I think what happened is that force behind the school levy drove Dwight Tillery to be the #1 vote getter, brought a city council of 3 women, 2 blacks, the most liberal we've had easily in a generation, perhaps forever. And I think that's what we're going to see with the final results. Cincinnati stood up and said, we want our schools and we want a liberal city council.
And tomorrow we will continue to analyze exactly what happened all day today, but that's our time for now.
Deep and 30 feet across. It's now been filled with cement. We're told 2 of the escapees were allowed to work with shovels, even though they had escaped before. 49-year-old Tommy Mollahan, 33-year-old David Williams, and 34-year-old Fred Hamilton. Hamilton is from just up the road in Highland County, Ohio. One of the other escapees, Williams, was reported to have broken into a house 2 miles from the prison to steal a woman's purse. Now, despite the massive search effort, all 3 men are still at large tonight.
Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell is putting out a warning tonight for people traveling to the murderers. And a good way to pass some time, I take it.
1.7 million. Next on News Channel 5 at 6, a high-tech drug bust in Boone County. We'll tell you how Procter & Gamble is involved in the whole mess.
Plus a search for a murderer who escaped from a prison in West Virginia. He's from our area. Could he be hiding here at home?
News Channel 5 at 6 is next. Out about all this in a court of law. Okay, thanks a lot. Remember?
3 convicted murderers who made an incredible escape from a West Virginia prison are still on the loose tonight, and one of them may be heading to our area. The convicts tunneled out of the state pen in Moundsville. One of those inmates is from Highland County, where News Channel 5's Jeff Hirsh went today to find out more about Fred Hamilton, convicted cop killer.
He got involved in drugs out of high school, into college. He got caught up in that in order to support the habit, stealing cars. Then it just grew from there. It snowballed.
Steve Hamilton talking about his brother Fred, one of 3 convicted murderers who escaped from the West Virginia pen in Moundsville. Men dug a tunnel 8 feet down and 30 feet out, which probably took months. Fred Hamilton is from Highland County, and it's possible he may be heading back. It's like the old adage, they always come home because the water's better, so they come back here, and I think he will show up back here. For a while, it seemed like Fred Hamilton was something straight out of a storybook, the small-town hero who makes good. He was a 1976 graduate of McLean High School here in Greenfield, and he was one of the best golfers in the state of Ohio. He got a college golf scholarship in West Virginia, but drugs and theft landed him in jail in 1977. He tried then to escape. A police officer was killed.
Anybody would be a threat to him in any way, he would kill him without hesitation.
But Steve Hamilton, a fireman in Greenfield, says it was different. He says there was a scuffle when Fred tried to get away, and ricocheting bullets did the damage. He says Fred would never deliberately try to kill.
We're worried that something will get him killed. I don't think Fred is the type to hurt somebody on purpose.
And Steve doubts his brother will try to return to Highland County. He thinks Fred Hamilton will keep running until he gets away or gets caught. Steve also has a message for a brother he still loves, a young man whose promise of youth turned tragic as an adult.
I just tell him to be careful, don't do anything stupid that will get himself killed. I realize he doesn't want to be in prison. Just be careful. If you need to turn yourself in, do it, and be safe. Don't take any unnecessary risk.
Fred Hamilton has already taken a lot of risks. The question now, will his next one be his last? Jeff Hirsh, News Channel 5.
Apparently, as a result of the escape, West Virginia's governor today accepted the resignations of the state's correction commissioner and the parole board chairman.
Well, a guilty verdict. In northern Kentucky, there are some strange things going on, and some strange things are going on at the most popular country music bars in the area. The people at Bobby Mackey's are getting used to not only playing country music, but also telling ghost stories. As we learn in Michael Collins' world, they swear they're more than just stories.
There was a time when Bobby Mackey's was known for drinking, dancing, a little pool, and a lot of games like Mr. Muscle Arm Wrestler and, of course, the famous Bull Rider. But over the last couple of years, something more has been added. Just ask Carl Lawson, the caretaker. More than once, he's been in the basement and seen things he's never seen before.
There was 2 men that was hanging here, just like there was gallows.
Walk along the banks of the Licking River behind the bar, and Doug Hensley will tell you a history of the occult, which he's written about in his book, Terror at Music World.
I learned that satanic worshipers still today worship the devil along the Licking River.
because it flows north.
Around this area here?
Right here behind Bobby Mackey's nightclub.
How long has this been going on?
Since the early 1800s.
No, many people say Bobby Mackey's is not the place you want to be left alone in when people leave at night.
From dishes flying, glasses flying off the bar, bar stools, chairs being knocked over, people being attacked, their names being called, and people being possessed.
In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth and on the authority of God's Word, I command Charlie, I command Sam.
People like Carl himself, who spent 3 days going through an exorcism. A recent national TV show brought in a well-known psychic who claims there are 6 ghosts here, one of which was named Pearl Bryant.
And I learned that there was a girl, Pearl Bryant, who was beheaded in 1896 by Alonzo Walling and Scott Jackson. Her head has never been found to this day. On the gallows, both men refused, even after they were offered a life sentence opposed to death, with the ropes on their neck. Both men refused to tell where her head is.
For a while after Carl's exorcism, things seemed to quiet down around here, but now the visions and the incidents are happening again.
Are they here right now?
Yes, they are.
Are they watching us?
Yes, they are.
Are they listening to us?
They're listening to every word I'm saying there.
The bottom line is the psychics and the people who have been dealing with these spirits or ghosts or demons or whatever they are all agree they're not going to go away, and no one knows where they'll show up next. Michael Collins, News Channel 5 tonight.
Ooh. And Michael was pretty shaken.
When he came back, I mean, he was, I mean, no joking around. He was kind of worried about
a little
being there.
spooky there.
How do you think they felt when Mike showed up?
Even worse, I'm sure.
It's not approved by the FAA, but News 5's Laura Randall decided to give it a try anyway. It's called Tandem skydiving. In tandem, 2 jumpers are strapped to each other, sharing one chute.
The beauty of it is only one jumper needs to know the ropes. The other just goes along for the ride. Tonight, we go to Skydive Greene County in Xenia to join Laura on the ride of her life.
This is it. A shack in a cornfield. It's not really confidence-inspiring.
One no-no in the whole jump, and I don't know if I mentioned it before or not, but don't grab my hands. We'll both die. I want those snug around your legs. I don't want them cutting off circulation, but I want them pretty snug so they're not shifting around. I want these snapped a little bit behind your shoulders. So what I'll do first is, there is a main parachute in this bottom half, and in the top half, which I can't reach, there is a reserve that's as big as the main. The little orange knob here is the drogue handle. That will stabilize us, and it'll also slow us down. If we didn't have that, 2 people in free fall with the same surface area and twice the weight would fall at about 170 or 80 miles an hour.
Oh, how fast are we going to go?
This drogue will slow us down to about 110, 120.
Oh.
Your right shoulder is hooked up. Your right safety is hooked up.
I like that sound.
You'll take this and you'll pull straight ahead on the right one. And we'll go on the left one.
Okay.
Scott.
No, we are buddies, aren't we?
We are that. We're ready for a long free fall skydive.
An excellent jump, and excellent photography by Ron Schmidt and everything. Wonderful.
To Laura and Ron, I've been here 10 years. That's as good as stories I've seen put together on the air. That was superb.
Excellent.
Not anything I want to try, but
You loved watching it,
yes.
but you would.
They have turned me into an absolute hockey fan.
Well, it seems like ever since Lemieux got hurt,
everybody's been coming through.
Yeah,
the main man, Yarmer Yarger.
You're getting good at pronouncing that, too.
No, I'm not pronouncing it right, but I'm just going to stick with it.
Yarmer Yarger's not right?
No, it's
What's his name,
Yarmer. You're so funny.
Thank you.
Well, you guys can compliment each other later. Still ahead. They're creepy and they're kooky. Not talking about Jerry and Greg, but they're not the Addams family.
These little things are actually part of a bug banquet. We'll have a taste
Finally tonight, usually a bug on your dinner table can turn your feast into a fiasco, unless, of course, the bug is your main course. Ants, crickets, and mealworms were not only the main course, but also the hors d'oeuvres and dessert at the first bug banquet. The bug banquet was held to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Entomology Society. In all, more than 100 people gathered to compliment the chef on the wax worms they found smothered in plum sauce. Oh, there goes the midnight snack. The Tonight Show is next, and we'll have updates every hour on the hour throughout the night. Thanks for being with us.
We'll see you tomorrow. Till then, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Good night.